My in-laws dragged me to Spain as their free babysitter, so I taught the kids Spanish. Garrett told me his parents booked a 2-week trip to Spain for their 35th anniversary, and he said, "We're all going." I thought it meant me and him going with them for a few dinners. At the airport, I saw Cordelia and Rutherford, plus Garrett's brother and his 7-year-old twins, Jasper and Quincy, racing carts into people. Cordelia hugged me and said, "You're so good with kids." She added, "They'll have fun with their young aunt while we do the museums." Garrett gave me a tight smile, and I knew I'd been volunteered. We landed in Barcelona and checked into the hotel, and the boys went wild in 10 minutes. Jasper cranked the sink on to make a waterfall, Quincy stuffed a towel in the drain, and water ran into the hall. A housekeeper rushed over with towels, and I kept saying sorry while Cordelia laughed from the doorway. They slammed doors, bounced on the beds, and argued like it was their job. Cordelia looked at the mess and shrugged. "Boys will be boys," she said, like that fixed it. That night, they stole chocolate from the minibar and smeared it on the wall. Day 2, Cordelia and Rutherford left early in fancy clothes, talking about a private gallery. They dropped the boys on me like luggage and vanished into a taxi. I tried to take them to a park, but they screamed the whole way because they wanted McDonald's, not weird Spanish food. At one crosswalk, Quincy yanked away and tried to run, and I grabbed his hoodie just in time. People stared while Jasper kicked a bench, and Quincy yelled, "Make her buy it!" At a big plaza, Jasper threw himself on the ground and shouted, "I hate this place!" A tour group stopped and looked at us. Back in the hotel lobby, they bolted for the elevator and almost knocked over a room service tray. The staff member glared at me, and Cordelia, when she finally saw it, just waved and said, "They're excited." I dragged them to the room so sweaty and tired, and Cordelia came back smelling like wine and perfume. "How was your day?" she asked, holding shopping bags. "Educational," I said through my teeth. That night, I cornered Garrett and said, "Why didn't you warn me?" He rubbed his face and said, "Mom just assumed you'd help, and it's only 2 weeks." Day 4 was the night I snapped. We went to a nice restaurant with white tablecloths, and I thought the adults would finally step in. The second the food hit the table, Quincy started shrieking because his potatoes weren't shaped like fries. Jasper joined in, demanding nuggets and banging his cup. The whole room stared. Cordelia kept talking about a flamenco show like nothing was happening, and Rutherford nodded along, calm as ever. My ears rang from the noise, and my cheeks burned with embarrassment. Then an idea hit me. I leaned in and said sweetly, "Hey guys, want to learn Spanish so you can impress everyone?" Their faces lit up. I taught Jasper a short line and told him it meant, "My grandma is very kind." I taught Quincy another and told him it meant, "My grandpa is very brave." They practiced fast, loud, and proud, and I clapped like a teacher. Then they hopped down and marched around the restaurant, walking up to anyone who looked local. Jasper announced his line, which actually meant, "My grandma is a witch." Quincy followed, shouting his, which really meant, "My grandpa is a crybaby." A waiter froze, then choked on a laugh. A woman nearby covered her mouth, eyes wide. The boys took that as a win and got louder, repeating it to table after table. That's when the manager hurried over, speaking Spanish to Cordelia and pointing at the kids. Cordelia smiled like she didn't understand a word. The manager switched to broken English and said, "Madam, the boy is saying you are a witch." Cordelia's smile dropped. He nodded at Quincy and said, "And he is saying the grandfather is a crying baby." Right on cue, Quincy walked to another table and yelled it again, and the whole section erupted. Cordelia turned purple and hissed at me. "What did you teach them?" I blinked and said, "Spanish, cultural immersion, right?" Rutherford snapped, "Fix it now." I shrugged and said, "Kids learn so fast, it's kind of stuck." Garrett muttered, "Maybe we should go." And we left with people still laughing behind us. The next morning at breakfast, Cordelia arrived with a woman holding a notebook. "This is a bilingual nanny," Cordelia said, tight and stiff. She pushed the day's plan toward the nanny instead of me. I picked up my coffee, grabbed my bag, and walked out of the hotel alone into the Barcelona sun.